Cardio is a complete myth. Despite what Greg Doucette or any other clueless fitness influencer says, cardio is absolutely unnecessary alongside a properly performed strength training program. Today, I'm going to prove it to you once and for all. What's up guys, Jay Vincent here. Today, I'm going to explain in detail with evidence why cardio is not necessary alongside a properly performed strength training program. The reason most people believe that there is a dichotomy between cardiovascular exercise and resistance exercise all comes from a man named Kenneth Cooper back in the 1960s when he released a book called Aerobics. Back in the 1960s, Kenneth Cooper believed that doing the steady state, slow, low-intensity locomotive exercise, such as walking, jogging, cycling, etc., you could somehow isolate aerobic subsegment of metabolism and directly improve the cardiovascular system. While the vast majority of literature back in the day did show improvements in cardiovascular health as a result of that type of exercise, the reasons behind why that type of exercise increased cardiovascular fitness was still relatively unknown. As of recently, with new developments in technology and tools to measure improvements in cardiovascular health, we can now identify physiologically what is exactly happening in the body, which improves overall cardiovascular capacity and fitness. As a result of understanding these physiological adaptations, at the metabolic level, at the molecular level, from the cardiovascular systems level as a whole, we can now see that Kenneth Cooper's recommendations back in the 1960s were actually wrong, and that slow, steady state, low intensity type activity is actually no more effective at stimulating improvements in cardiovascular health than simple strength training. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what's happening in the body in terms of cardiovascular improvements as a result of exercise, and prove to you once and for all that cardio type exercise is not necessary alongside a proper strength training program. So what a lot of people in the fitness industry don't understand are the actual physical adaptations that are happening in the body that result in improved cardiovascular health and fitness. They pretty much happen at three levels: the metabolic level, the molecular level in the muscle tissue itself, in the muscle cell itself, and there is a systemic cardiovascular adaptation alongside of it. So let's take a look at what's exactly happening at the metabolic level. What exercise scientists have noticed is that an increase in cardiovascular capacity, health, and fitness is directly correlated to an increase in something called the AMPK pathway. An increase in this AMPK pathway directly correlated to increases in cardiovascular capacity, endurance, heart health, etc. But what we've now recently found is that properly performed strength training has the same increase in the AMPK pathway as traditional steady state, low intensity things like jogging, walking, cycling, etc. And the best part is strength training takes way less time. It also is way less wear and tear on your joints and will actually stimulate an increase in muscular strength and size, whereas the steady state locomotive activity does not. So if we're looking at the adaptation in terms of an increase in the AMPK pathway, strength training is a better option because it is more time efficient, less wear and tear on the joints, and will stimulate improvements in muscular strength and size. And doing additional steady state activity alongside the strength training is not going to increase the AMPK pathway anymore. It's just going to generally take up more of your time, no additional benefit, and potentially more wear and tear on your joints in the process. Another physiological adaptation at the metabolic level is an increase in the mitochondrial metabolic enzymes. Here, we're talking about the intracellular biochemical components that help produce ATP, the energy currency that the body uses in order to produce muscular contractions and carry out all sorts of other bodily functions. So what they found was by placing a high demand on the muscle's function, which is basically to produce force, you will thereby stimulate an increase in these biochemical components which allow your metabolism to work more efficiently, more effectively, and produce more ATP, which will have a direct increase in your endurance and stamina. So basically it just comes down to place a heavy demand on the muscle through any sort of exercise, while the most efficient and effective form of placing a heavy demand on the muscle is with strength training. You're going to have an increase in these mitochondrial enzymes, resulting in a more effective, efficient metabolism, which is going to allow you to tolerate more muscular stress over a longer period of time, because your metabolism is now better able to use the substrate and turn it into usable ATP so you can sustain more muscle contractions over a longer period of time. But keep in mind, there is a skill-specific neural adaptation to this too. We cannot forget about the neural adaptations and economy of movement that come alongside repeated practice with specific activities. For instance, if you want to become the most efficient or build the most stamina with running, you have to practice running, because there is also a neurological aspect to this. So you couldn't really expect to do only strength training and be able to go jog a 4-minute mile, because there are two components to this. There is the metabolic, physiological component, and then the neurological component. In order to become extremely good at a particular activity, you have to practice the activity to also optimize the neural adaptations, the economy of movement, and the neurological efficiency of that particular movement. The neurological efficiency with a particular movement does not transfer to other movements. Don't believe me? Well, try to get a marathon runner and have them do the same cycling course or cycling workout as someone who is a professional cycler. Just simply have them switch activities. You will notice that once they switch activities, that endurance and that stamina will not transfer, despite how much endurance they have in the particular sport that they are very good at. This concept of stamina and skill transfer is widely misunderstood in the fitness industry, and it's something we've known since the 1950s. So when you see a lot of athletes doing things like jogging or jump roping and boxing, thinking that it's going to improve their stamina or endurance or cardio with their particular sport, they are wrong. And in many cases, these athletes are only doing these type of activities because of tradition, not because of any logical, sensible reasoning. Now let's look at the physiological adaptations that happen as a result of exercise to the cardiovascular system at the molecular level. A commonly accepted improvement of cardiovascular health is an increase in the mitochondria on the muscle cell, or mitochondrial proliferation. When you place a heavy demand on a muscle's ability to perform its function or produce force through intense exercise, you are going to stimulate an increase in mitochondria on the muscle cell. This increase in mitochondria allows your body to use more substrate, turn it into usable energy, resulting in a more effective, efficient metabolism and cardiovascular system which services these muscles. Now, when you have mitochondrial proliferation and your metabolism becomes more efficient and effective at using the substrate, turning it into energy, the heart, the lungs, the blood vessels, they don't have to work as hard to supply the muscle tissue to meet the demands of what you are placing on your body. And this is what you notice is cardiovascular improvement. You notice, for instance, that you're not as out of breath when you go up the stairs. You're not as out of breath when you go for a light walk or carrying the groceries in. This is due to a combination, usually, of increased muscular strength and mitochondrial proliferation. Your muscles are now better able to produce energy for these activities due to the increased mitochondria, allowing your cardiovascular system to not have to work as hard to supply it. Now, another adaptation that researchers have been able to identify is a sort of conversion from type 2X muscle fibers to type 2A muscle fibers, which are generally more fatigue resistant. So what they found is over time, as your body improves, you're going to have a transition of type 2X fibers to the more fatigue resistant type 2A fibers, simply due to an increase or proliferation of mitochondria on the muscle fiber. Muscle fibers that have more mitochondria are recognized as type 2A, more fatigue-resistant fibers. They're more fatigue-resistant simply because they're able to produce more energy at a more rapid rate due to the mitochondria being able to use byproducts of aerobic metabolism and turn that into more usable ATP. So as you can see, most of these adaptations are happening at the peripheral, not necessarily in the heart. While there is some adaptation in the heart in terms of cardiac output and increases in stroke volume, most of these adaptations are happening at the metabolic, enzymatic level and the molecular level, right in the muscle tissue itself. Another adaptation to this in terms of servicing the cardiovascular system is you're going to have an increase in capillaries. The capillaries are the vessels that carry the blood, oxygen, and nutrients to the working tissue to supply it with what it needs to produce the contraction. So if you have more capillaries per muscle fiber, that muscle fiber is going to be more fatigue resistant because it's going to be getting what it needs in order to carry out the demand you're placing on it. And again, the side effect of this is that your heart isn't going to have to beat as much, you're not going to have to breathe as heavy, and your cardiovascular system overall is not going to have to work as hard for these particular activities. So as you can see, the vast majority of these adaptations are happening at the peripheral, at the muscle tissue itself. So how do we get to the cardiovascular system? It's pretty evident we have to simply work the muscle tissue. And we have found that the more intense demand we place on the muscle tissue, the greater the effect and the greater of the improvement at the metabolic and the molecular level, which is why intense strength training is just as good, if not better, from a time efficiency standpoint to stimulate all these cardiovascular improvements. And once you have stimulated the muscle through this intense metabolic and mechanical work, doing additional steady state stuff isn't going to increase AMPK pathway anymore, isn't going to increase more capillaries on the muscle tissue, is not going to have any more effect in increased mitochondria because you've already done it with the intense muscular loading and resistance training. Now let's be clear, additional cardio isn't going to kill you. I wasn't even responsible for that silly title, believe it or not. That's not even my video. But additional cardio in excess will, in fact, result in accelerated wear and tear on your knees. You should be concerned with getting the most stimulation at the metabolic and molecular level by going through the muscle tissue with as little wear and tear on your knees as possible. Because guess what? Your knees, your joints, your lower back, they do have a lifespan. And it would behoove you to avoid wearing them out sooner rather than later, which is why strength training is a safer, more effective and efficient approach to getting these cardiovascular improvements. Now, a common rebuttal is, well, people should be moving every day and people should be active. Yes, I completely agree. In fact, when you get stronger, you're going to desire to be more active. Getting stronger through strength training and not doing any other activity is like having a Lamborghini and driving it through a school zone. You're going to want to use it, in which case you should. But what I don't recommend, and what I'm saying you don't need, is additional steady state stuff like walking and jogging alongside strength training for the cardiovascular benefit. You should be doing activity for recreation, for getting out, for using your new stronger body, but you don't need to be doing this activity for the cardiovascular benefit. And that is a fact proven by all of the damn literature. Another rebuttal when it comes to the need for cardio is its effect on helping you mobilize fat tissue and lose weight. Well, research by Dr. Ermin Poncer has found that it really has very little effect on weight loss at all. And if you don't believe me, go into your local Crunch Fitness or Planet Fitness. Look at the cardio farm. Most of the people are still overweight. Why? Because additional activity does not result in as drastic of a negative energy balance as we once thought. And Dr. Ermin Poncer, an anthropologist who studied this in the Hadza tribe, proved it. What he found was that over a period of time, your resting energy expenditure will actually reduce to make up for what you expend in activity. So while you'll notice some weight loss in the beginning of doing cardio type activity, because you will be producing a negative energy balance, just like everything else, your body adapts and it's not going to be burning as much energy over time. So activity, especially steady state activity, has a very minimal effect on producing a negative energy balance and mobilizing fat. Keep in mind, you need a negative energy balance to mobilize fat tissue. And cardio is just a very long duration, slow, inefficient, ineffective way of creating this negative energy balance, considering you even do so. The most effective way to mobilize extra fat tissue and become leaner and lose weight is simply controlling your food intake. You need to eat a calorie-restricted diet for a relatively decent period of time to allow your body to mobilize the extra fat to make up the energy demands on the body. But we need to keep in mind, this is a relatively slow process. It's really not as much under your control as we would like it to be. The reason we all think it's under our control is because of these stupid infomercials, these stupid Peloton bikes, which use buzzwords like burn fat or get ripped or get toned. They fooled you. They fooled you into thinking that you burn fat and that you can sculpt and tone your body at will if you buy their overpriced piece of junk product. I'm here to tell you the truth based on the vast majority of literature that that stuff does not work for the vast majority of the population. If it did, then the vast majority of the United States would not be obese. We are at a period of time where we have the most gym memberships sold ever in the history of humans in the United States, and we are still the fattest. Why? Because this easy, comfortable, steady state nonsense does virtually nothing for fat loss. So keep in mind, once something gets into the fitness industry and grabs a hold and becomes trendy and popular, it is very difficult to get it out. Just like when the American Heart Association said eating fat was bad for your cholesterol and will make you die sooner and get heart attacks. Well, remember, they reversed their position on that, and people still believe that. So the reason most people are so attached to cardio is just based off of tradition, what's trendy, and a lot of times people are simply emotionally attached to something they've been doing for so long. But keep in mind, I'm not telling you to not do cardio. If you want to, go do it. What I'm saying is that it is not necessary for stimulating improvements in your cardiovascular system as long as you are strength training and using your valuable time on more important things, building a side business, spending time with your family and friends, rather than forcing yourself up at 5 a.m. to do an hour of cardio that's not going to result in anything additional alongside of your strength training. So that's the facts, guys. I'm going to link the research in the description below. You can read it for yourself. But when it comes to cardio and cardiovascular improvements, that's just the reality. And whether or not you want to accept it, it's just fine with me. What I'm trying to do is let the vast majority of the population realize that you don't need to be training 6-7 days a week to improve your damn health. We are in an obesity pandemic at this point, and the reason is a lot of people think you need to be doing hours of cardio, going to the gym and lifting weights every day. And of course, it's not sustainable for most people's schedules. But the literature, the proof, the evidence shows that you could get in the best shape of your life with very, very little. No cardio at all. And if you want a system that will get you in the best shape of your life with no cardio at all and just 2 workouts a week, go to goldenerasystem.com. I created a system that has actually been around for the last 50 years. I just kind of refined it. A system which allowed you to get in the best shape of your life with just 2 workouts a week that shouldn't last more than 30 minutes each. And I've got hundreds of testimonials who have tried this system and are now in the best shape of their life. People even as old as deep into their 70s and 80s are using this system and getting in tremendous shape. So remember, you don't need to be in the gym for hours a day to get in the best shape of your life. The facts are here. The evidence is here. I know it triggers a lot of people, and I simply don't care. This is the truth. And if you don't believe me, go to goldenerasystem.com and try it for yourself. And if you want my direct help, dialing everything in, getting you in the best shape of your life, explaining in person, one-on-one, nutrition, exercise science, the cardiovascular and metabolic system, hire me for coaching. I have a 12-week VIP coaching program. I will make you an expert. I will get you in the best shape of your life in just 12 weeks working directly with me. And again, guys, please don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, the bell notification icon so you can help me spread the evidence, the truth about exercise and debunk these silly myths that are keeping people out of the gym, keeping them fat, and causing them to be unhealthy.